Hi, I'm Daniel Porras. I'm an investor at Flybridge. We are an early stage venture capital fund based in Boston and New York, mostly investing in pre seed and seed founders, 100% focused on the AI space, both at the application layer and at the enablement or infrastructure layer, as we call it. So I've been deep diving, and the reason why we haven't reached the great promise of AI, which is personalization. And one of the core reasons is around the issue of memory hasn't been solved yet. So I went kind of deeper with a colleague of mine that works at LangChain to understand like what have been those bottlenecks that haven't been solved to date. And what we found out is one, like, yes, historically, memory is not necessarily net new. When you log in an application, you usually don't start from zero. Usually it has some recollection of what you have done in the past, but at a very basic level. Now the generative AI came, the great thing that happened is like now you're able to use a lot of this unstructured data. So if you had a conversation with somebody that was recorded, all that 30-minute, 1 hour transcript can now be used to store your future user experience. But the challenge is with all that amount of data, like understanding what is valuable for storing as memory and not is a huge challenge that to date like hasn't been solved. Even as you look at ChatGPT and OpenAI, which is building at the frontier, like they have released some basic memory features, but it's not that magical experience that everyone is expecting around like an app that truly understands you, truly recollects your whole back experiences, because it's not really just about feeding the all your context history in a prompt and that's a solved issue. It goes way beyond it. One of the things that many people think, as I was sharing, is like you just stored a lot of this user information and feed it in the prompt. And especially as the prompts have been getting bigger, meaning you can now feed like maybe like 30, 50, 100 pages of information, and that solves the issue. But what people don't take into account is as you feed more information, you start encountering some issues that you naturally don't think about, but happen around like contradicting data. Let's say that you as a user, Andrew, you're using this AI chatbot application, and last month, like 6 months ago, you loved Italian food. So like the system recommended you Italian food, you were pretty happy. But then 2 months ago, for some reason, you got exhausted of Italian food and now you don't like it, you don't want to go again, and now you like Chinese food. If you just feed the history of your conversation and interactions of the AI system as a prompt, like it would be very confusing for the AI to understand like, okay, like he used to like Italian, but the reality is that that old memory that he has had to be replaced like with this new change that this user had in behavior before. And that goes again well beyond just feeding that context. So yes, the context windows help, especially with like there is an important separation between what you call like short-term memory and long-term memory, which is very similar to like how humans and you and me operate in short-term memory in AI being a lot around you ask a conversation with a chatbot and maybe it recalls the past 7 chats that you had. That context window increasing, it's amazing. But then you have the longer term memory, like these user preferences, past processes that a user have faced with the AI interaction, which ones have worked, which ones have failed. And those, again, managing those, all of those is very challenging. So in the memory space, as I went deep into it, like you can see there are like different players that are trying to capture the value. So as I was mentioning, one of those being the foundational model players. As context windows get larger, for more of the basic applications, short-term memory, I think they will keep capturing a lot of the value. And again, as context windows gets larger, I think they will start like that short-term memory may start becoming like medium-term memory if you call it. But as we were speaking lately, that doesn't solve the whole issue, especially for long-term kind of memory interactions. And as a result of it, we have been seeing kind of two players emerge. On one end, the agent frameworks like LangChain or CrewAI, they have started offering these new modules for like creating these memory recollections. They're greatly positioned in terms of like they already own that developer mindshare, they're developer top of mind. But at the end of the day, they are not a specialized players. So as we've been speaking with the different builders, the feedback we got is like, it's great, as in it's easy to set up and integrate if you're already like a LangChain user or a CrewAI user. but it's more for like the basic memory collection. So if your app doesn't require something very complex, or like the amount of context that you would feed it to the system, it's very straightforward, like you should go with them. But then you are starting to see a new emergence of like new specialized players that are just focused on memory. So the three big ones being Leda AI, Mem0, and SEP. Each one of them is like just focusing on enabling both developers to basically incorporate memory in their application in a much like easier way, but at the same time in a much complex way. So an interesting player that I consider from that group is SEP. They're leveraging this concept of that's historically been existing around knowledge graphs, but applying it now to memory. So each of those memories is now like a node in the graph that you have. So it's like Andrew went an 8 Italian with Dorothy. Dorothy is Andrew's wife, and kind of that graph application to memory now enables you to do more like interconnected relations on memory. And the big question that people may have is like, will the value accrue at the very end? And the take where I land is it's gonna be like a hybrid mixture between the players, where for basic applications you will have the foundational model players capturing a part of that value. For the more intermediate applications, the agent framework offering will be enough. And then for the more advanced applications, it's gonna be on the specialized players. Who from those specialized players is gonna win? I would say it's still early and there's not like a clear winner, and I would say there is even space for a newer player to emerge. As I was saying, it's getting easier, but it's not fully solved. But it's exciting for application layer companies that all these players are gonna make it easier for them to build like more magical user experiences. So if you're a founder building the application layer, but thinking that your application like where the personalization components like gonna play a very important role in the future of or your platform, there, especially the one area that I would recommend to paying a lot of attention is you may get caught in the noise of like these different frameworks, short-term memory, long-term memory, knowledge graph application. But at the end of the day, it all comes to the business logic, like for your specific application and user workflows, what are the most important memories that you want to store and that your application cares about? Because if you have a fitness app on one end and then you have like a travel app on the other end, like both ends carry on different parts of the memory system. And at the end of the day, that's how you should be thinking of both the architecture and the provider that you pick at the end. And what I would say with all of this is again, like the promise of generative AI has been personalization. We haven't reached it yet, but it's the most exciting future where you're gonna be able to truly deliver an app where me as a user log in an app, it knows who I am. Based on who I am, also even the user interface is different from me from the other player. It's able to tailor like personalized experience towards me. And what we're seeing is that infrastructure architecture that you need to get to that future is starting to be formed, which would just lead to like that truly most exciting application that I would say I personally believe we haven't seen yet. So with a colleague from LangChain, we just published a piece on the topic that you can find both on the Flybridge website page as well as my personal Substack D4feed, where we cover a lot of these topics in much depth. If you're a founder building at the infrastructure front of enabling that memory layer for application layer companies to build, we're always looking forward to meeting and supporting amazing and visionary founders. And if you're also building at the application layer where you think that memory will be a massive unlock and you both want to exchange opinions, your personal experience, you can find me at daniel@flybridge.com.